My family disowned me because of a lie. Not a misunderstanding. Not a mistake. A lie. One accusation from my younger sister destroyed everything I'd spent my entire life building. My parents threw me out of the house. My relatives cut me off. Friends disappeared. I became homeless. And for 7 years, nobody cared enough to ask if I was innocent. Then one day, my phone rang. It was my mother. The same woman who hadn't spoken to me in nearly a decade. The first words out of her mouth were, "Your sister confessed." She lied about everything. And then, after destroying my life, my family had the audacity to ask me for help. Before I tell you what happened when we finally met face to face, you need to understand how it all started. Growing up, I thought I had a normal life. We lived in a comfortable suburb outside Denver. My dad worked in finance. My mom was obsessed with appearances and making sure everyone thought we were the perfect family. For most of my childhood, I was exactly the son they wanted. Good grades. Good athlete. No serious trouble. When I was 10 years old, my parents adopted a little girl named Emma. She was 3 at the time. At first, I was jealous. Suddenly, everyone focused on her. Every conversation became about Emma. Every family event revolved around Emma. But eventually I got over it. As we got older, I honestly thought we had a decent relationship. We weren't best friends, but we weren't enemies either. I looked out for her. If someone picked on her, I stepped in. If she needed help with school, I helped. I thought that's what older brothers were supposed to do. Looking back, there were warning signs. She hated being compared to me. Whenever my parents praised me, she'd become quiet. Whenever relatives talked about my achievements, she'd leave the room. At the time, I thought it was normal teenage jealousy. I had no idea it would eventually destroy my life. By the time I was 22, things were going great. I was finishing college. Playing baseball. Planning for a career in business. I had a future. Then one Tuesday afternoon, everything ended. I was leaving practice when I checked my phone. 37 missed calls. Dozens of texts. Most of them made no sense. What is wrong with you? How could you do this? Don't ever contact me again. My stomach dropped. I immediately called my dad. The second he answered, I knew something was wrong. His voice was ice cold. Get home. Now. Then he hung up. The drive felt like hours. I kept trying to figure out what happened. Had someone died? Was somebody hurt? Nothing prepared me for the truth. When I pulled into the driveway, several relatives were already there. The second I stepped out of my truck, my uncle charged at me. He grabbed my shirt and slammed me against the vehicle. I'm going to kill you, he screamed. I was too shocked to fight back. Dad pulled him away. Then he pointed toward the house. Inside. The living room was packed. My grandparents. Aunts. Uncles. Family friends. And sitting in the middle of everyone was Emma. Crying. The moment I walked in, the room went silent. Every single person looked at me like I was a monster. I felt my chest tighten. What happened? I asked. Nobody answered. Then my mother stood up. Her eyes were red from crying. The look on her face wasn't sadness. It was hatred. How could you do that to your sister? My heart stopped. What are you talking about? Then my father said the words that changed my life forever. Emma told us everything. I looked at my sister. She wouldn't even meet my eyes. Then she started crying harder. And she accused me of something I had never done. Something so horrifying I couldn't even process it. For a few seconds, I genuinely thought I was having a nightmare. I kept waiting for someone to laugh. To tell me this was a joke. Instead, everyone believed her. Every single person. No questions. No evidence. No investigation. Nothing. Just instant judgment. I denied it. Again and again. I begged them to listen. I begged them to think logically. But nobody cared. They had already decided who the villain was. And it wasn't Emma. It was me. Then my father punched me. Hard. The impact dropped me to the floor. Blood filled my mouth. I remember looking up at him, completely stunned. This was the man who had taught me how to ride a bike. The man who used to cheer at my baseball games. Now he looked at me like he wanted me dead. "Get out," he said. I tried one last time. "Dad, please. You know me." His answer still haunts me. "You're no son of mine." A few minutes later, I was sitting on the front lawn with garbage bags full of clothes. The front door slammed shut. And just like that, I lost my family. I didn't know it yet. But that was only the beginning. For the first few hours, I sat in my truck staring at my parents' house. I kept expecting the door to open. I kept expecting my mom to come outside and tell me there had been a misunderstanding. I kept expecting someone to realize how insane the accusation was. Nobody came. That night, I slept in my truck. The next morning, I called everyone I could think of. My grandparents. My aunts and uncles. Family friends. Even a few cousins I had always been close to. Most never answered. The few who did hung up the moment they heard my voice. It was like I had died overnight. Only worse. People mourn the dead. Nobody mourned me. A week later, I was sleeping on a friend's couch. He let me stay as long as he could, but rumors were already spreading. People talk. And accusations like that spread faster than wildfire. Soon everyone seemed to know. Nobody asked for my side. Nobody wanted to hear it. The accusation alone was enough. Then things got worse. My parents stopped paying my tuition. The money disappeared without warning. I went from being a full-time student with a promising future to someone desperately trying to keep his head above water. I picked up every job I could find. Security work. Night shifts. Anything that paid. My grades collapsed. Baseball stopped mattering. Every day became about survival. The stress followed me everywhere. Classrooms. Work. Even grocery stores. I could feel people looking at me. Maybe it was paranoia. Maybe it wasn't. Either way, it felt real. A few months later, my truck died. The repair cost more money than I had. Without transportation, I lost one of my jobs. Without that income, I couldn't afford rent. Within weeks, I was homeless. I wish I could tell you I handled it well. I didn't. I was angry. Bitter. Terrified. Most nights I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my family's faces. The disgust. The hatred. The certainty that I was guilty. The worst part wasn't losing my home. It wasn't losing college. It wasn't even losing my future. The worst part was realizing nobody believed me. Not one person. Eventually, my baseball coach found out what was happening. One night he discovered me sleeping in the team's equipment shed. I still remember the look on his face. Not judgment. Not suspicion. Concern. Real concern. "What happened to you?" he asked. For the first time, I told someone the entire story. Everything. When I finished, he sat quietly for a moment. Then he said something I desperately needed to hear. "You can stay here until the semester ends." That was it. No accusations. No lectures. Just help. Over the next few months, he became one of the only people keeping me going. His wife packed leftovers for me. They invited me over for dinner. Little things. But when you've lost everything, little things matter. I eventually finished the school year. Barely. My GPA crashed. My baseball career ended. And whatever future I thought I was going to have disappeared. After graduation, I left. I couldn't stay in a place where everyone knew my name for the wrong reason. I took a job at a wilderness program several states away. It wasn't glamorous. The pay wasn't great. But it gave me a place to sleep. A place to eat. And most importantly, distance. For a while, I convinced myself I was rebuilding. The truth was I was running. Running from my family. Running from my past. Running from the person I'd become. I started drinking. A lot. Anything that helped me forget. Anything that made sleeping easier. The pain never really left. It just became quieter. Then one day, a guide working at the program died in an accident. Nothing directly connected me to it. But it forced me to look at myself honestly. I was spiraling. And everyone could see it. Not long afterward, I lost that job too. The next year was the lowest point of my life. I worked construction. Security. Day labor. Anything that paid cash. I lived in a beat-up car. I showered wherever I could. I ate whatever I could afford. I stopped trusting people. Stopped making friends. Stopped imagining a future. Life became something I survived one day at a time. Then came the night that almost ended everything. It was raining. Cold. The kind of rain that soaks through every layer of clothing. I drove for nearly an hour without knowing where I was going. Eventually, I found myself standing on a bridge overlooking dark water. For a long time, I stared down. Thinking about everything I'd lost. My family. My future. My reputation. My dreams. 7 years hadn't passed yet. But it already felt like a lifetime. Nobody was calling. Nobody was looking for me. Nobody cared. I honestly believed the world would keep spinning if I disappeared. Maybe it would even be better off. I climbed over the railing. And for the first time, I seriously considered not climbing back. Then I heard a voice behind me. Bit cold for a swim, don't you think? I nearly lost my balance. Standing a few feet away was an older man in a raincoat holding a fishing rod. He looked completely calm. Like finding a stranger on the wrong side of a bridge railing was a normal Tuesday evening. Go away, I said. He didn't move. Instead, he stepped closer. My name's Marcus, he said. What's yours? I didn't answer. But for some reason, I didn't jump either. And that decision changed everything. I don't know exactly why I stayed. Maybe I was exhausted. Maybe I was scared. Or maybe some part of me still wanted to live. Marcus stood there in the rain without saying much. He didn't try to guilt me. He didn't lecture me. He just talked to me like I was a human being. Eventually, I climbed back over the railing. The second my feet touched the pavement, my legs nearly gave out. Marcus nodded as if he'd expected that outcome all along. Come on, he said. Let's get you something hot to eat. I followed him. Not because I trusted him. Because I had nowhere else to go. Marcus lived alone in a small house outside town. The place was spotless. Everything had a place. Everything was organized. He handed me dry clothes and pointed toward the bathroom. Take a shower. You smell like regret and rain. It was the first time I'd laughed in months. A tiny laugh. But it was something. That night, he made dinner while I sat at the kitchen table. For hours, we talked. Or rather, I talked. He listened. I told him everything. The accusation. My family. The years that followed. The homelessness. The loneliness. The bridge. When I finally finished, he leaned back in his chair. You've been carrying all that alone. I nodded. He shook his head slowly. No wonder you're exhausted. The next morning, he offered me a job. Marcus owned a small private security company. Nothing huge. Just enough employees to handle local contracts and executive protection work. "We need reliable people," he said. "You interested?" I stared at him. "You don't even know me." He smiled. "I know enough. That's simple. No background interrogation. No suspicion. Just an opportunity." For the first time in years, someone was giving me a chance instead of a judgment. I accepted immediately. The next few months were brutal. Marcus believed in discipline. Early mornings. Long hours. Strict standards. No excuses. At first I hated it. Then I realized something. He wasn't trying to control me. He was helping me rebuild. Piece by piece. The man who stepped off that bridge wasn't the same man who started working for Marcus. Slowly, things improved. I started sleeping normally again. I stopped drinking. I got into therapy. At first I resisted. Talking about the past felt pointless. But Marcus refused to back down. "You've got physical scars and mental scars," he said. "You treat both." For once, I listened. Therapy didn't magically fix everything. The nightmares didn't disappear overnight. Neither did the anger. But I learned how to live with it. How to move forward without letting it define me. Within a year, I had saved enough money to rent my own apartment. Nothing fancy. Just a small place with clean walls and a working lock. To me, it felt like a mansion. For the first time in years, I felt safe. Then I met Olivia. Technically, we met because of Marcus. Though he'd never admit it. One weekend, he assigned me to provide security at an art gallery opening hosted by his niece. That niece was Olivia. Our first conversation wasn't exactly romantic. She thought I was just another security guard. I thought she was an arrogant artist. Neither of us was impressed. But somehow we kept talking. One conversation became two. Then dinner. Then another dinner. Soon I found myself looking forward to seeing her. Which scared me. Because I hadn't let anyone get close in years. Olivia noticed. She could tell I was hiding something. Whenever family came up, I changed the subject. Whenever my past came up, I got quiet. Eventually she confronted me. Not aggressively. Just honestly. "Whatever happened," she said, "you don't have to carry it alone." That night, I told her everything. The entire story. Every ugly detail. I expected her to leave. I expected suspicion. I expected doubt. Instead, she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Then she said 3 words nobody outside Marcus had ever said. "I believe you." I broke. Completely. Years of pain came pouring out. All the anger. All the grief. All the loneliness. Olivia just sat there and let me talk. When I finished, she hugged me. No judgment. No hesitation. Just support. That was the moment I knew I loved her. 2 years later, I proposed. She said yes. Marcus stood beside me on my wedding day. Not as a boss. Not even as a mentor. As family. Because that's what he'd become. Over the following years, life finally started making sense again. I finished my degree. The security company grew. Marcus eventually made me a partner. Then we expanded. More clients. More employees. More contracts. Every year got a little better. The nightmares became less frequent. The anxiety loosened its grip. For the first time since my early 20s, I felt genuinely happy. I thought that chapter of my life was over. I thought my family was part of the past. I was wrong. Because 7 years after they destroyed my life, my phone rang. And my mother's name appeared on the screen. For a few seconds, I just stared at the screen. My mother's name. 7 years. 7 years without a phone call. 7 years without a text. 7 years without so much as a birthday card. And now she was calling. At first, I considered ignoring it. Part of me wanted to. But another part needed answers. So I answered. Hello. There was silence. Then I heard a sob. Jake. The sound of her voice hit me harder than I expected. It was older. Softer. Broken. What do you want? I asked. More crying. Then the words that changed everything. Your sister confessed. I froze. My grip tightened around the phone. What? She admitted everything, Mom said between sobs. She lied. She made it all up. For a moment, I couldn't speak. I had imagined hearing those words 1,000 times. In every version, I thought I'd feel relief. Vindication. Closure. Instead, I felt numb. Because hearing the truth didn't give me back what I'd lost. It didn't erase the years. It didn't erase the pain. It didn't erase the nights I spent sleeping in my car wondering if life was worth living. Finally, I spoke. Why are you telling me this now? Mom hesitated. Please. We need to talk. I hung up. Not because I was angry. Because I couldn't breathe. The next 2 weeks were chaos. Calls. Voicemails. Texts. Messages from relatives who hadn't spoken to me in years. Everyone suddenly wanted to reconnect. Funny how that works. For 7 years, I didn't exist. Now they couldn't stop calling. I ignored every single one. Until Marcus finally asked me a question. What do you want? Not what they wanted. What I wanted. The answer surprised me. I wanted the truth. I wanted to hear it from their mouths. I wanted them to look me in the eyes and explain how they threw away their own son. So I agreed to meet. One meeting. Public place. My rules. No second chances. The following Sunday, Olivia and Marcus came with me. We arrived early. I chose a table in the corner. Old habits die hard. I liked being able to see every entrance. As the clock hit 2 o'clock, they walked in. For a moment, I barely recognized them. My mother looked 10 years older. My father had lost weight. His shoulders were slumped. The confident man who had thrown me out all those years ago was gone. And then there was Emma. The sister who had destroyed my life. She couldn't even look at me. Nobody spoke at first. Finally, Dad cleared his throat. Son, I'm not your son. The words came out before I could stop them. Silence. Dad lowered his eyes. I leaned forward. Why am I here? Emma finally spoke. 3 months earlier, she'd called a family meeting. According to her, the guilt had become unbearable. She admitted everything. Every accusation. Every lie. Every fabricated story. All of it was fake. I stared at her. Why? Tears filled her eyes. I was jealous. Just like that. 2 words. Jealous. She explained how she felt invisible growing up. How she thought I got all the attention. How she wanted people to focus on her for once. She never expected things to go so far. At least that's what she claimed. But once everyone believed her, she kept lying. For 7 years. 7 years. I looked at my parents. And you? Neither answered immediately. Eventually, Dad spoke. We thought we were protecting her. I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was unbelievable. You didn't protect her. My voice rose. You didn't protect either of us. People throughout the coffee shop were staring now. I didn't care. You never checked anything. I reminded them of details that could have proven I was innocent. Dates. Events. Places where I wasn't even in town when some of the alleged incidents supposedly happened. Evidence they never bothered to look for. My mother started crying harder. My father couldn't even meet my eyes. Then I told them the part they didn't know. The homelessness. The beatings. The bridge. The night I almost ended my life. Every word felt like ripping open an old wound. By the time I finished, my mother's face was buried in her hands. Dad looked completely shattered. Good. For the first time, they were finally seeing the consequences of what they'd done. Then Dad said something that made everything click. "We want to make things right." I stared at him. "How?" Neither answered immediately. Instead, they exchanged nervous looks. That's when I knew. And sure enough, the truth came out. Dad's business had failed. The family had lost money. They'd sold the house. They were struggling. Emma had dropped out of school. Bills were piling up. Then came the question. The real reason for the meeting. "We need your help." I actually laughed. A loud laugh. The kind you can't hold back. After everything they'd done, they wanted money. Support. Rescue. The people who had abandoned me wanted me to save them. It was unbelievable. Dad looked embarrassed. Mom looked desperate. Emma looked ashamed. For a second, nobody spoke. Then I stood up. Slowly. Calmly. I looked directly at Emma. "I forgive you." Everyone froze. Emma started crying immediately. But before anyone could react, I turned toward my parents. "I don't forgive you." Their faces fell. "You were the adults." My voice remained steady. "She was a teenager. You were supposed to protect both of your children." I pointed toward myself. "Instead, you threw one away." The silence was deafening. "You didn't ask questions. You didn't investigate. You didn't care. You decided I was guilty and never looked back." Mom reached for my hand. I stepped away. "We're family," she whispered. "No." I shook my head. "We stopped being family 7 years ago." I pulled out enough cash to cover our drinks and set it on the table. Then I looked at all three of them one final time. "What do you want from me?" Mom asked through tears. I thought about it. For years I had imagined that moment. Wondered what I'd say. The answer turned out to be simple. Nothing. Because that was the truth. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want money. I didn't want apologies. I didn't want another chance. I wanted peace. And peace meant moving forward. Not backward. Olivia stood beside me. Marcus rose from his chair. Together, we walked toward the exit. None of them followed. None of them stopped us. The last thing I saw before leaving was my father sitting there with tears in his eyes. For the first time in my life, he looked completely powerless. 2 years have passed since that meeting. As far as I know, my parents eventually lost almost everything. Dad works a regular retail job now. Mom cleans houses. Emma moved away and started over somewhere else. Sometimes I wonder if I should reach out. Maybe someday I will. Maybe someday I won't. But one thing is certain. Their choices no longer control my life. Today, Olivia and I are expecting our first child. The business continues to grow. And every night when I walk through my front door, I see something I once thought I'd never have again. A family. Not the one I was born into. The one I built. And this time, nobody can take it away. Before I end this story, there's one thing I want to say. For years, I thought my family destroying my life was the worst thing that ever happened to me. Maybe it was. But looking back now, I realize something else. If they hadn't thrown me away, I never would have met Marcus. I never would have met Olivia. I never would have built the life I have today. That doesn't excuse what they did. It doesn't erase the damage. And it definitely doesn't mean I deserved any of it. But sometimes the people who break you accidentally push you toward the people who help put you back together. Do I hate my family? Not anymore. Hate is heavy. I've carried enough weight for one lifetime. Maybe one day I'll forgive my parents completely. Maybe I won't. Either way, I'm done letting the past decide my future. The next chapter belongs to me. And this time, nobody gets to write it except me.